Alright, the first thing we're going to cover on the functions and formulas part of this course is dates and time periods. Let's scroll down. I'm in the Basic Financial Analysis tab. Let's scroll down to a new area here, and let's assume we're going to perform some analysis that requires specific dates. So I'm just going to create a header here that is time periods. I'm going to bold that, and then I'm going to create a line here for monthly data. I'm going to create one here for annual data. And I'm going to show you a few things here. The first thing is we're going to learn how to make today's date. And so you can set equal to today, and then just open and close parentheses, and you get today's date. If you press Control 1, you're going to want to go into the number format and make sure that it's set to be a date. So this can be useful if you want to have today's date in the Excel file as a starting period. It's important to note, though, that this will automatically update each day when you open the file, so it will change over time. If, however, you wanted to have it be static so that every time you open the file it has the same start date, I'm going to press Control 1 here to change this to a date. Then I would recommend hard coding it and using Alt-H-F-C, changing the color to be blue so we know that it's a hard code. So now I've got two versions of today's date. I've got a dynamic version and a static version. So let's look at some monthly data now. If I want to imagine that these numbers were monthly instead of annual, what I can do here is I can use a formula that's for the end of the month. So it's EOMONTH. And I'm going to select a start date, and in this case I'm not going to add a time period to the end, an increment. I'm just going to take the end of the month, which happens to be today, and then so let's just put in a different start date here to make it more interesting. Let's say it was August 15th, 2016. So it automatically takes that to the end of the month. Now what we can do is across the top here, I'm going to add increments that we want to increase the monthly numbers by. And I'm going to fill that right with Control R. So across the top here you can see this is sort of month 0, and then you have month 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what we can do now is we can make a similar formula that's dynamic that moves across. So I'm going to set it to be equal to the end of month function. I'm going to select the start date as our hard-coded number in D23. I'm going to lock it using F4 so that it's an absolute reference, comma, and then I'm going to reference the cell above, which is the number of months out that I want to move it, and I'm going to close bracket. So now I get it moving from August 31st to September 30th. I'm going to select the area to the right and press Control R, and then I see that it moves September, October, November, December, etc. And it's always picking, you can see February 28th. It's always automatically updating for the last day of the month. So this can be very powerful if you have a monthly forecast and you want to be accurate and detailed about what time period you're referencing. So now I'm going to show you how to do annual data where you're going to pick the last day of the year as the time period instead of the last day of the month. And we can set it up to make this dynamic, which can be very useful. So the first thing that I'm going to do actually is I'm just going to move the absolute reference date of today over 1. And the reason I'm going to do that is I'm going to put a 0 here and change this formula to be 0 plus 1 and move it across. So now what we can do is copy cell E24 and paste it in D24. So we've now got a 0 month as our start, which is the end of the month that our current date that we've put in here is. So now what we can do is we can do the annual version of this. Let's set this equal to date. The date function just returns a date in Excel. And within the date function, we're going to also use the year function. Year function will take a date and turn it into whatever year that date is. So in this case, we just want to take the 2016 portion of that date. And then we're gonna add to it a time period. So we're going to add to it either, in this case, 0 years or 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, etc. And then we're going to set the format to be the month is always going to be December and the date is always going to be the 31st. And the last thing that we're going to do in this formula, going back into it with F2, is we're going to lock the reference to C23 so that when we copy this formula over, it copies over properly. So we've got the December 31st, 2016 being the date here, and then I'm going to select this area and press Control R, and you can see now that it goes 2016, 17, 18, 19, etc. So we've got these dynamic end of year dates based on a start date, and if I were to change this to 2020, as you can see, all these dates automatically update, the monthly and the annual. And you can build this into your header dates at the top, or you may use it for a separate piece of analysis down, like I've shown you down here. But in any event, you're going to want to have it dynamic so that you can always input a start date and you can add increments to it, and the model will always be up to date. The last function I'm going to show you how to use is called year frac, which represents a fraction of a year. And this can be very important for discounting and DCF analysis when you need to know what time period you're discounting, whether it's half of a year at the beginning, 3/4 of a year, etc., etc. So what we can do actually is let's make another section here that says monthly period, and then annual period. And what I'm going to do is for the monthly, I'm going to type equals year frac, open bracket. The start date is always going to be this one hard-coded start date, so I'm going to press F4. And the end date is going to be whatever the current month that I'm looking at is. And I'm going to close bracket. I can take that and fill it right. So as you can see, we're building up over time. Each month is representing a small fraction of a year. So this can be very powerful for discounting. And then with the annual, I'm going to do the same. Equals year frac, open bracket. Absolute reference this cell by pressing F4. And then select the end of year end date. And fill it right. So as you'll see, all these time periods, because we're starting on August 15th, 2016, you're moving along an entire year in each case, but you've always got this fraction, this sort of stub year, if you will, of 0.37. So this can be useful for discounting. Let's just clean this up a bit. If you press Control Shift down arrow and then right arrow, you can then press Alt H9 a few times to just reduce the number of decimal places. I think 2 decimal places is sufficient in this case to clean it up.